Such a powerful film. Now it's my great honor to introduce three amazing women. Christine Schuler-Deschryver is an internationally renowned human rights activist. She was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and after her best friend was murdered there in 1998, Christine devoted her life to ending sexual terrorism in Congo. She's the co-founder and director of the City of Joy and the director of V-Day Congo, where she oversees all aspects of V-Day's work on the ground, including the City of Joy, as well as local, provincial, and national campaigns against violence. She's also the vice president of the Pansy Foundation, DRC. Eve Ensler is a Tony Award-winning playwright, author, performer, and activist. Her international phenomenon, The Vagina Monologues, has been published in 48 languages and performed in more than 140 countries. She's the author of the New York Times bestseller, I Am an Emotional Creature, as well as the highly praised In the Body of the World and many other books and plays. She's the founder of V-Day, the global activist movement which has raised over $100 million to end violence against women and girls. And she's the founder of 1 Billion Rising, the largest global mass action to end gender-based violence in over 200 countries. And tomorrow, 1 Billion Rising is celebrated all around the world. Kimberly Crenshaw is a professor of law at UCLA and at Columbia Law School, and she's a leading authority on civil rights, Black feminist legal theory, and race, racism, and the law. Her groundbreaking work on intersectionality has traveled globally and was influential in the drafting of the Equality Clause in the South African Constitution. She's the founder and executive director of the African American Policy Forum, a gender and racial justice think tank, and the founder and executive director of the Center for Intersectionality and Social Policy Studies at Columbia Law School. She's a leading voice in calling for a gender-inclusive approach to racial justice interventions and spearheads the Say Her Name movement. So now please join me in welcoming Christine Schuler-Deschryver, Eve Ensler, and Kimberly Crenshaw.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out. We have so much to talk about. So before we get started, I first want to congratulate you both for the wonderful work that you've done in the Congo and for this incredibly moving documentary. I think just to start, I'm sure a lot of people will want to know a little bit about what's happening now. Particularly, tell us about what's happening with Jane.
Well, good evening, everybody. In the film, it was the first session, and now we just started the 15th session, and we already have more than 1,200 graduated. And Jane, she works at City of Joy. She's so alive. She exercises with me every day. And she's a role model for the other girls. So she has a very important role at the City of Joy, because when you look at her, she's beautiful, she's so alive, she's solar. But when you know her story and how she feels in her body, because she already had 11 surgeries, but I'm sorry to talk like this, but they can't repair her, because we are talking about reparation. But she's also an example for all of us, because after what she survived and being with her every day, I think I will never complain again in my life.
So Eve, by the nature of the documentary, we generally focus on one or two women, but I'm sure there are many other stories of women who've come to the City of Joy from the most unimaginable circumstances and have just thrived and turned lives, their tragedy, into transformation for other people. So are there any other women that we should know about?
Well, hi everyone. It's wonderful to be here tonight, and I just want to say how happy we are to be here with Kimberly, who's not only our dear friend, but our V-Day board member, and has been a big part of building this movement that created City of Joy. And I want to acknowledge the other board members, Pat Mitchell and Carol Black, who are here tonight, and Susan Swan and Anju, who are all our team. You know, I was at City of Joy in the fall, and I think what's amazing to see is, after all these years, the growth. You know, in every single way. Like when we began, it was in a swamp, and there was hardly anything growing. And I remember Christine saying to me, "Oh, wait, you'll see in 2 years this place will be something else." And I was like, "Really? All right." And I swear to you, we planted 2 orange trees. 3. They were little babies, and now they're like, I mean, they're just gorgeous trees. But the whole place is this gorgeous garden that has grown and grown, and it's just like the women. I mean, everything there has grown. And I was thinking about like Jackie. Jackie was a woman who was in the first class, and she was the one who couldn't love her daughter. She came to City of Joy because she had been raped, and she couldn't love her daughter because she kept seeing the face of her rapist. And when she left City of Joy, she had fallen in love with her daughter. I mean, Jackie went home. She started collectives where she brought everybody in her community, and they built these amazing farm collectives where everybody got fed and everybody got supported. She's in love with her daughter. And then recently, we made a decision that they were going to hire many more women to protect City of Joy as guards, right, and train them. So Jackie and 2 other women were brought back to be guards. And when I was there, I mean, I can't even tell you. We drove up, and there they were in their orange suits, and they were like, "We're the guards now." And it was just to see where they had been when they started City of Joy, where they could barely speak, they couldn't look at you, they couldn't lift their heads up, and now they were the protectors of women at City of Joy. To me, that is radical transformation.
So that's part of, I think, what makes the City of Joy a unique story in the story of development. So let me ask it this way. Why is this not, or more than, a story of rescue, right? What is it that's unique about the City of Joy that explains a story that you just told, a woman who comes back and she's now a guard, that explains that this is about choices and women exercising agency as opposed to swooping in and rescuing the women? So how did that come about, Christine?
You know, rescuing and helping are the words that I hate the most. Because we don't need people to come and rescue people in the Congo. Because when Eve Ensler came in 2007, she asked the women what they wanted, and they told her exactly what they wanted. So she didn't come to rescue people, but to ask them, what can I do to serve you? Because, you know, we have ideas, but we didn't have the material to realize our dreams. They wanted to be empowered. They didn't want to have nice clothes or to have money, because they want to take back their country. And you have to know from the history of Congo that until today, this country never belonged to the Congolese. It was sold to Leopold King, to Leopold, and then you had all the history with Mobutu, and then with old Kabila and the new Kabila, and now we have another president, and it's run by multinationals who are just there to plunder Congo, like. A worker today working for a multinational, he can't even buy a sack of rice. He can't even buy a sack of rice. But he goes every day, you know, to take all the mineral, the coltan, the gold, the uranium, etc. But they have nothing. They are starving because also they don't cultivate anymore. they all go into the mining.
So there's a way in which the story of Congo is such a story of paradoxes. Like when you look at the opening montage, the place is beautiful. I mean, you look at it and you think, how is it even possible that a place that's this gorgeous, that has so many natural resources, all the things that historians will want to say, this is what's makes countries great. And at the same time, precisely because of the wealth of the Congo, it's the very thing that makes it unsafe. You said earlier that Congo would be safer if it didn't have all these natural resources. What did you mean when you said that?
Look, for years now, people were looking for coltan. Coltan, that's how we explained in the film. It's something you have on your cell phone, your computers. But unfortunately, now we are talking about electric cars. So, and the cobalt they're using in electric cars, most of the cobalt is in Congo. So it will be another war, a silent war again. So every time there's something, it's like, oh my God, we have these again. So we will die again for this. So I don't know. I think also Congo, it's like a beautiful woman, that everybody wants. But this beautiful woman, she doesn't have choice. Because everybody will just come, and at the end she cannot choose. No, it's so complicated.
So let's talk more about the layers, right? So you indicated that the Congo is like a beautiful woman, has so much there, everybody wants it, and at the same time, unprotected, no limitations on the exploitation. So Eve, how has, first of all, colonialism historically contributed to this moment, but equally importantly, how has racism also contributed to the openness around the plunder and the failure of the international community to actually protect in any meaningful way?
Well, I think I think one of the things I was most struck with when I first went to the Congo was the intersection of colonialism, racism, sexism, and capitalism. Like, I'd never seen a place that kind of like that fiery cauldron mix that had manifested in such an extreme way. And if you read the story of King Leopold and what King Leopold did to the Congolese, it's not dissimilar to what happened with slavery in America. He completely, without ever stepping a foot, by the way, in the Congo, all his emissaries went, but he actually never went there. He plundered the Congo, he enslaved the Congolese, he turned the Congolese into nothing in their own country. He raped the women. I mean, the women tell me stories how when they were young, their mothers were younger, they would walk around with the little mini knives under their skirts because they were always being raped. So they were always just stabbing, trying to poke people so they wouldn't get raped. And he cut off the hands of millions of people during the rubber trade who were slaves who wouldn't work fast enough. So I think that colonialist capitalist intervention not only robbed the Congolese of their autonomy, of their indigenous rights, of their resources, but it got this thing into the mind of the world. This notion of the heart of darkness, this idea that the Congo was somehow exactly what slavery did in this country. It demonized the victims, right? It turned it around so that the impression people had of the Congolese was that they were everything that the Belgians had been, but it was projected onto the Congolese. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where racism comes in, because I don't think people even think of the Congolese as people. They don't even think of the Congolese as people with a potential future, and that's been injected into the Congolese themselves, right? So they don't believe that they have a right to a future. They don't believe they have a right to their land. They don't believe they have a right to their own resources. And I think then you get to women, and that's a whole other level of oppression, where women have never, ever had a right on any of those levels. And I think part of what all these, correct me if I'm wrong, these last 16 years of war have done is just exacerbated that. Just exacerbated the colonialist aspects, the racist aspects, the economic aspects, and the sexist aspects.
So on the sexist aspects, I think the colonial dimension of it, the parallels to slavery might be roughly familiar to some audiences, but then the depth, the nature of the abuse and the torture of women just seems to defy explanation. And Christine, I know earlier you said you don't even call it rape anymore. You call it terrorism. Explain that.
Sexual terrorism.
Sexual terrorism.
Because if you look at the definition of rape, it's like a man who has like a need, and but in Congo, when you start raping 6-month babies, 87, almost 90 years old women, if you put gas in their vagina and then fire, if you put woods, it has nothing to do with rape anymore. And I remember at that time I used the word sexual terrorism because I wanted to bring the attention, into the Democratic Republic of Congo, because I remember when the U.S., when you went to bomb Saddam Hussein, you were talking about all these bombs. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use the same word. So maybe they will come and do something in the Congo, but they didn't. Because, also when you talk about, I think the color of our skin, like black, is related to misery, to violence, it's like it's normal. Mm-hmm. Like few weeks ago, not a month ago, we had a massacre. They found almost 900 bodies. It's like 2 huge airplane A380 crashing at the same time, but nobody talked about it. The United Nations, they started talking about it 3 weeks after. So tell me what it means. It's exactly the same in America. When they kill the black people, it's like, okay. But touch one. I'm sorry, I hate talking about the color because I'm black, half white. But when they do something to a white person, just imagine that they did the same, if they do the same, like raping babies in America, grandmothers, the whole world will stand up. But in Africa, it's related to black people. Oh, they're like this. Oh my God! And then you turn off the TV. Mm-hmm. That's why people know nothing about what's going on in our countries.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a perfect storm. You create the conditions, and then because the way you have imagined the people, the conditions and the people define themselves, define each other, and make it a circumstance that is not seen as exceptional and doesn't warrant global intervention. So, Eve, I'm wondering about the intersections of racism and misogyny as telling a narrative that allows people to see this as basically normal. And I'm curious because there was another part of the world where rape and war were coextensive, and you actually wrote about it. You wrote a play about it. So what do you see the differences being between the way the world reacted to the Bosnian situation and the way the world is not reacting to the Congolese situation?
Well, it's interesting. I've been reading a lot of slave narratives the last few weeks, and just looking what happened to black women slaves, yes, and looking at how often black women were raped, and how it was just taken for granted. And I'm going to get to answer your question, but black women didn't even have rights to say no, to say yes, to say they were just everything. And so there was no personhood. There was no personhood, right? And so the perception of personhood in the eyes of many people was erased. I think very similar things have happened in the Congo. I don't think people see. I mean, one of the things working in Bosnia or working in Kosovo, the Bosnian War started. It was a horrible war. There were rape camps. But within a year and a half, that war came to an end because it was happening in white Europe, right? And even though Muslims were being raped, they were white Muslims. And we saw a halt. The war in Congo has been going on for 16 years. We're talking about close to 6 million people. Hundreds and thousands of women have been raped. We're talking how many mass graves have been undercover, how many people have, and still there has been no outcry. No outcry. And I remember going places with Dr. Mukwege in Europe, to the European Union, where we would be talking, and the war had been going on for 16 years, and people in Europe would say, oh, we didn't know. And it was like, how is it possible that you are saying that you don't know? It's you knew, but this wasn't a big deal. This was just normal. This is what you expected to happen. And I think breaking through that is the hardest thing. It's denormalizing racism. It's denormalizing sexual violence. It's denormalizing. It's saying, no, this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And I think it's even hard, and I think you'll agree with me, for victims who've been raped to denormalize their own expectation of what's going to happen to them. I think it's a huge part of the work at City of Joy, wouldn't you say?
And so is that part of the work that you do? And I guess, more particularly, how do you do that work of denormalization? Like, this is not, although you see it all around, it is not what is taken or should be taken as just the nature of life for Congolese women. How do you tell that story in a way that empowers them to take back the sense that this is an outrage, this is intolerable, and we're not going to accept this as just being the condition of our life?
I think it's part of the course that they have at City of Joy. By the time you teach them just to sing, you say the anthem of the country that nobody knew, and to listen to the words. Mm-hmm. And also they have this civic education. It changed the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Because at the end, I can see when we finish, like at the end of the session, when they sing the national anthem, most of them, they have tears in their eyes. Singing, with the hand, in their heart. So it's something, and trust me, these girls will change the country.
Yeah. So I want to bring in a third person who is somewhat part of this conversation, although not physically here, Dr. Denis Mukwege, who has recently won a Nobel Prize for his work. So Eve, describe Dr. Mukwege, and importantly, the role he played in bringing the two of you together.
Well, I was asked to, 13 years ago, I was asked to interview Dr. Mukwege by the UN, and the UN had never asked me to do anything before. I always make a joke. I go, the U and the V never really met up very well. But I was so stunned that they had asked me to do something, and then I read Dr. Mukwege's resume, and to be honest, I didn't want to interview him because we were very active in Afghanistan and Bosnia and Haiti, and I didn't think we could actually get involved anywhere else and do it effectively. And then I read his resume, and I was so moved by his work, and then I met him. And, you know, Dr. Mukwege is a very impressive and very moving person. And at the time, it was 13 years ago, it was the height of the war. And his eyes were actually bloodshot because he was so exhausted from everything he was seeing. And he invited me. He was so happy to be able to talk to someone openly about vaginas because he is a gynecologist, and what he was seeing was obviously the worst atrocities being done to women's bodies and women's vaginas, and he invited me to come and to help and to support, and you know, and so I was really of course I was going to go. And he said I had to meet this woman, Christine Schuler-Deschryver. And I was like, great. And so I wrote to Christine and I was like, hi, my name is Eve. And Dr. Mukwege said I should write to you. And she wrote me like the meanest, bitchiest email, right? And I was like, wow, okay. And she'll tell.
What did it say? What did you say, Christine?
What did you say, Christine?
I don't remember. I think I just said, yes, Dr. Mukwege talked about me. Nice to meet you, Fini.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, I guess that didn't go well. And so did we even have more communication then?
No, after I met, I saw Dr. Mukwege, he was looking for me. He was like, my goodness, you have to write to that woman. I was like, I already wrote to her. And I said, you were so cold. I said, what do you want me to do? And I didn't write again to
and
her.
tell them why.
And there was a reason why. Yeah, why? I mean, what had been your experiences with celebrities?
No, because I didn't know who she was. So he told me that he met an amazing woman. So I was like, oh my God, another one. And I was like, who is she? Then he said, no, you know, this woman, she will come to Bukavu and she will make the vagina talking. I was like, Dr. Mukwege, are you okay? And then he was like, no, you know, Christine, she's very famous. By the time I heard the word famous, I was like, no, thank you. No more celebrity.
And why? What had your experiences
Because
been?
during the war, I was like almost the only one there, you know, trying to do something. So all the celebrities, I'm not going to name them. I have a list. So every time they came, you know, with all the paparazzi. So I think I was in every, in a closer, I don't know how you call all the magazine. Mm-hmm. So they came, they cried a lot, and they left me with business cards. Mm-hmm. Promised me, you know, like they will come back, they will change the country, blah, 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 blah. So I started believing them, but at a certain point I was like, and some of them.
Didn't some come with gifts, little
gifts? Oh my goodness. One day I had a group of Americans, very rich women, like 12 of them. They came, and so I was like, oh my God, finally we will have something. Because we didn't have money, we had nothing. So they came and they were like, okay, we have to go. And Dr. Mukwege asked me to be the translator. I was so happy to do it because I had expectations, like they're bringing something for us. So they came and I was translating for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then finally they were like, oh, we brought something for you. I was like, oh my God, finally. So they brought us presents. So they took envelopes. I thought it was money, but it wasn't. They brought postcards. I was like, okay. It was like, can you translate? We love you. Okay. Banatupenda. I was translating. And on and on and on. And finally, they were like, oh, we also have presents for you. They came with the, you know, the snowballs you shake and then you have snow?
Yes.
I was like, really? How can I explain to rape survivors in Congo what's snow? And if you move, you will see snow. So I was like, no way. Oh, we have something else. And they brought these cards singing Jingle Bells. I was like, no, I can't anymore. So that was so insulting. And that time I was like, okay.
So this wasn't the most auspicious beginning of a relationship, right? So how did it happen? Because this is now an unlikely scenario given your experiences. So what happened that made it work?
One day, it was a Sunday, because every time I had free time, I went to volunteer at Panzi Hospital. It was a Sunday, and then the ambulance arrived, and they brought 2 little children, raped. One, Eliza, she was 3, and the other one was 4. And at that time, I wasn't well at all. I was anorexia. I was dying. So when I saw the children, because when I saw blood and pusses in my feet and the smell, I was like, not those children. And then they told me yes. So I went into my car. That day I was driving myself. And then I didn't know who to call. Because, all my friends, they always told me to give up, that I was dying, and blah, blah, blah. So I remember that Dr. Mukwege gave me a piece of paper. She wrote her email and her phone number. So I don't know why I called her. And I was weeping, and I was like, my name is Christine, I don't know if you remember me. She was like, of course I remember you. So I was like, and then suddenly are you weeping? And then I was like, yes, for the first time of my life, I think I can kill. And then I explained to her the story, and then she told me I'm coming, and she came. Yeah.
Wow. So, Eve, the story that Christine tells is not unfamiliar, right? People going in to do good, or people going there to show their concern, but then you don't see them anymore. So we know the story that Christine is talking about. What was your what motivated and what shaped the way you wanted to make yourself of service to the women of the Congo? Because I think a lot of people they get confused about how to do the work, and then they get critiqued for doing the work, and they're like, well, I'm not going to do anything at all anymore. How have you navigated that?
It's a really good question. I think early on, when I went to Bosnia during the war, I know this is going to sound like a very simplistic story, but I went because initially I wanted to do a play about, I was writing this kind of metaphysical fantasy play that was going to involve, I was really obsessed with the idea that there were rape camps, and I just couldn't believe it in the middle of Europe. And I had a whole agenda when I got there, my agenda, what I was going to do. And I could see, in that American way, we have like our agenda and what we're going to do, and it's going to. And at one point, I was taken to this place that was helping rape survivors, and it was a very, very painful place. Everyone there had been raped. The circumstances were really terrible, and there was this very amazing-looking woman who was very strong, and she was sitting in this chair, and I was just asking question after question after question. And I was young, I was a lot younger than I am now, and she looked at me and she went, Polacco, Polacco, Polacco. And I looked at Rada, who was my translator, and she went, slowly, slowly. And it was like someone had just gone, they had just taken everything I thought I was there to do and thrown it out the window. It was like, are you here to serve us, or are you here to serve you? Right? And I literally started all over. It was like, oh, this isn't about you. This is about being present in service to them and letting them determine what you are here to do. And I think for me, that was a seminal moment in my life, and by the time I got to Congo, I had been in a lot of different war zones, and I knew in Congo, meeting Christine was such an extraordinary moment because we immediately just went, oh, you. I've been waiting for you my whole life. It was one of those moments. But it was also like, I think both of us knew we were there to serve the women. And we spent weeks and weeks and weeks listening to women after that, and it was unbelievably painful and unbelievably difficult. But we were surrendered to them. We were surrendered to them, and I think it's like people. My desire to go in with my story wasn't a bad thing. I wasn't a bad person for that. You know, I had a story of what I thought, but what was wrong about it was it didn't match up with what I was really there to do for them. Right. And I think most people go in with an idea of what they think they should be doing, whether you go into other people's communities, whether you go into other people's houses, whether you go into people's countries, and you go with your agenda. That is not of service.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I know that there are a lot of people who want to be of service and are many times put off by some of the critiques that they get for being of service. So, going in a little bit, we know that Western women, white women, elite women, many times have been critiqued for the colonial gaze or the white let me lift you up. I mean, there are all sorts of frames for it, and it can be sobering. It can make some people think, well, why am I going to do this if I'm going to get this attitude, right? So there has to be a reaction or response or orientation towards doing the work that doesn't rely on being affirmed and praised, and actually may be open to the fact that sometimes one is critiqued. So my last question is to both of you. So to Christine, you've said sometimes you're frustrated by the fact that some of the people who make these critiques about V-Day, about Eve, about other women who've come in to provide the support that is asked for, a lot of them don't even know where the Congo is, right? Have never even been there. Yet the ability to make the critique is sometimes framed as being in support of women that they've never met, never will meet, don't know anything about it. So I'm curious about, what you think is motivating these kinds of critiques from people who've never been there, aren't trying to help, and if their critiques are able to, discourage support, they would actually undermine some of the work that you're trying to have done. So if there's anything you wanted to say about them or to them, what would it be?
I have to say that most of the critique come from white people and not from the black people, from the black community. For example, in Congo, we never had a single critique about the work we are doing. Every time she comes, she's like, "Oh my God, Eve is there," because we know that without V-Day, no City of Joy at all. And I think these people, they just want to exist. They just want to exist, and most of the time, like I said, they never left their village. They don't even know where Congo is on a map. And they pretend like to talk for us. I think we have voices. If we want to say something, we have voices. We can write, so we don't need them to talk. And with what happened in Congo, because nobody was there to help. Even if you had people coming from the moon, we would have welcomed them. Because we needed people to be with us, to be the wind behind our backs, to help us. It's like I always say, like Congo is like a dove with one wing. So we cannot fly by ourselves. And I feel like V-Day is like, really the wind that will help us, slowly to take, so we can fly by ourselves. We didn't talk about it because that's not the issue today, but since City of Joy, we have a farm, a huge, 300 acres farm that V-Day bought for us. So now we feed City of Joy. So we almost have like our second wing to fly. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, we are very proud of that. And I think we have to let the people feel they are important, like they are the ambassador of the Congolese or whoever they want to be, and let them exist.
Eve, you have a motto that I think we're seeing playing out called, shut up and serve. So what does that look like, and why is that so hard? I mean, how does one have to situate oneself so that one has the capacity to shut up and serve? And who does that message go to, by the way?
Well, I think anytime you make a decision that you're going to step out of your comfort zone, right, to be in solidarity with somebody who is not your community, you have to shut up and serve. I mean, part of it is you have to learn, you have to listen, you have to pay attention and find the ways you can be useful, right? And learn that it's actually not about you. Like, if you are privileged enough to be stepping out of your community to go, then you've got the privilege, right? And I think part of what happens, and I just want to say this, I think that many times white people are very well-intentioned, but there is like a knowledge gap. There are things one doesn't know. And when you come up against what you don't know, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you get taught lessons. You're like, wow, I didn't realize about myself. I didn't realize about my privilege. I didn't realize. And rather than going, well, I'm not playing anymore, I'm taking my cards and I'm going home, which, there's part of you wants to do that. There is an instinct like, well, okay, I came and you're not liking it and I'm going home. The other part is like, oh, I have something to learn here. I have something. We're in this together. This is a mutual dance. This is, it's like I go back to City of Joy now, and to be honest, I'm pretty irrelevant. Like there was a time I felt people needed me more, and I have that feeling sometimes, like, well, I guess they don't really need me anymore, and I know Christine loves me and needs me, but it's an indication that the project is successful. Yeah. That's what it means, and sometimes I'll go to my room at night and I'll be like, well, they don't need me, and I do. I have that feeling, but the flip side is I'll call Susan and I'll say, it's working. It's theirs. The Congolese, the City of Joy is owned by the Congolese. It's determined by the Congolese. There's nobody outside of the Congo who works there. And I don't think there are any other programs like that in the Congo where the internationals aren't in control of it. So we have succeeded. Mm-hmm. That's what love is, And that means you got to get out of your ego and out of your head and say, what are you really here for? Mm-hmm. Are you here for you? Or are you here to serve the people that you said you were here to serve? And you've got to work on your ego. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, wow, they don't need me. And it's painful, and yet, okay, go home. Get on the plane, And I'm not feeling sorry for myself, but I'm just saying there is a real process you have to go through,
Mm-hmm. And maybe that's the benchmark for success. When you get to a point where you have to ask, so am I needed anymore? That is basically, a signal, an indicator that actually you've done the work that you need to be doing. Well, I want to thank you both for your courage and your wisdom and your vision to bring about this miracle, and especially for providing a lesson for everybody about how to make themselves available and how to create the partnerships and the friendships that sustain this work. So I want to ask everyone to join me in thanking them, first of all, for what they've done. And I think we have some time for just a few questions, if there are some. I'm going to just take all of the questions and let them answer them together. So, right here. There's going to be a mic.
Oh, thank you guys again for coming today. Really were empowered by the video. So I want to appreciate you guys for what you're doing for the country of Congo. My question was, is there other male leaders that are helping Dr. Mukwege with this project, or is it just him by himself? Of course, you guys have been doing a great job helping him.
Okay. Question number one, are there male leaders? A couple more. There's one right here.
Please wait for the microphone.
Yeah, it's good relating to his question because I am wondering, are you educating even the men in Congo, not just the women, about raping or what's happening, woman's body and psychological things and everything?
Okay. So are men involved in leadership and are men being educated? Right here.
Thank you. This question is for both of you. There's an opportunity to have more cities of joy in the world. I'm from Mexico, and I'd love to see a city of joy there. So how can we seek assistance in replicating City of Joy? Because maybe you don't feel like you're needed there. Like, that's such a success, but there's a big world out there, and you're definitely needed. So, and thank you so much.
Okay. Future plans for other cities of joy. Any other? Right here.
I came here from New York to hear what you ladies had to say. I apologize for all the empty seats. Don't look at them. The people here listen to your stories. It really, truly matters, the stories that you're telling. I saw your father on a TV program fighting off gorillas, and he ended up being the one who habituated gorillas, the first human to bridge that gap. And he protected the Kahuzi-Biega Park. He created that, and here you are after all these years with City of Joy. And I guess my question is it a family trait? And if not, if it's a human trait to defend and to protect things against terrible adversity, as people in the audience, and let's pretend that I'm a corporation that we don't have to name, what would you have us do?
All right. So shall we start with the man question?
Yes. I think Dr. Mukwege is the director of Panzi Hospital. And he works with 500 people. That means he has a whole team around him. He travels a lot, because he needs to travel to look for funds. So the whole team. And I have to say, most of the doctors are leaders. And when he's not there, the work continues. And also, as you saw in the film at the beginning, he came to City of Joy for the classes. But since now we do have another doctor, she's a female, because he doesn't have time anymore, and he used to be a lot on travel. But you know him, you know me, but we have huge, amazing team around us that they are not always, unfortunately, not visible because we cannot travel with all of them. And I'm taking this opportunity to honor our V-Day team in the Congo, who are doing an amazing work. Even when I'm not there, the work continue. But because you know me, you will think, okay, Mama Christine, she's amazing. But we have huge, amazing team. And I also want to start the response to the lady regarding the men. I will talk about Congo. We have V-Day and then we have the V-Men. And the men we worked with at City of Joy, all of them are V-Men, like men fighting for women. And we used to go in colleges, also in primary school, to talk to young men and young boys, to explain them what's good, what's not good, what's violence and what's not violence. So we have a whole program of sensibilisation all over the DRC. And before we built City of Joy, we traveled all around Congo. We even performed a vagina monologue. Can you imagine, in Congo? In many countries. At the beginning, it was in Kinshasa. It wasn't easy. Because when they saw the title, I remember the president, he sent one of his advisor to me to ask me, is Christine totally crazy? Are they going to perform naked? So we had you were there. So we had all the officials. No, of course, we do a huge work on men, because that's, I'm sorry, but they are the cause of war. Women are not raping women. But I have to say, we also have men who are raped. But you know, for a man to go and talk about rape, it's really difficult. So when they go to a doctor, that means they have no other alternative. Because it's shameful. It's like, you want to continue?
You want to answer the question about whether there's a trait. You see it as being a trait to help people,
Family trait.
the family trait.
Yeah, I'm so happy you knew about my father, who was and who still and will always be my hero. My father was a real V-man. And I was born also as an ecologist, and since we were children, he always told us that every morning when we wake up to know how privileged we were. You know, at that time he was almost volunteer. He wasn't paid, you know, when he worked for the park, he worked for the government. But we were just so happy to have at least to eat twice a day, sometimes not 3 times a day, and to go to the Belgian school. And he reminded us every day, when you wake up, you are in good health, and you can go to school, just be grateful, and never forget the poorest. Because my mother, she came from a very extremely poor family. She was never at school. And that's the education we had. And we continued the work, with my husband, we continued the work of protecting also the gorillas park during the war. And also at the same time, I remember even the first film they did about us for France 2. It went all over the world. People didn't want to come and make a story about rape survivors. So we had to work with a friend who's a journalist at Paris Match to see how we will turn it for people to accept the film. So they did a film, it was about me, talking about my father, the park, the gorillas, because people were, even now, more interested about the gorillas than humans. So it was a story like gorillas protecting, and suddenly, oh my God, in the park, they rape. It's sad, but that's the way. That's how they could make the first film about. No, I think we have. It's part of the education, and that's probably my DNA.
And Eve, I remember you used to talk about how there was negotiations to protect the gorillas, and then they forgot the women, right, in the process of that.
I remember they did a CNN special where they raised money for gorillas. And then several years later, they did one where they raised money for rape women of Congo. And I think it was like they raised hundreds and thousands for the gorillas and nothing for the women. And 20 million. It was like 20 million. And it was one of those stunning moments where you go, what? Mm-hmm. But I just want to answer your question about City of Joys. Mm-hmm. You know, what we decided when we started City of Joy is that we would give it 5 to 6 years so we could really iron out all the kinks and know what we were doing and really say what works best, what doesn't work best. And I think we're here now. And our dream is that we want to start beginning to open up City of Joy's other places. And I actually think we should all be living in just one huge city of joy. You know, like the world should be a city of joy, because honestly, it's the most. You know, when I was there last time, I said to Christine, it's the most sacred place I've ever been in my life. Mm-hmm. It's the most sacred place, because what is happening there is so profoundly transformative, and it's so full of love. And there's so much music, and there's so much music on the level of real music, but music on the level of spiritual music, and the level of community, on the level of investment in each other, and the level of dance, on the level of drumming, on the level of theater, on the level of just, and what it's taught me is that we all want to be living in City of Joys. It's like we're all so atomized and isolated, for example, in this country, and we're so without community. And, like a beautiful woman was saying to me tonight, that when she was around V-Day, she got strength to go and do something. And I was saying, but that's the point of community. Like when you're in community, when you're in movement, what happens is you get strengthened by each other. You get lifted by each other. You see your story in each other, and you're not alone in each other. And I think in this country, I have to say, and with the onslaught of this massive technology, we've gotten so isolated, that we don't understand, like, this is how we all grow and evolve. And so our dream is definitely to begin to figure out how we can take the model, and we're in the process of writing a book on what we've learned, what are the steps, how would you do it, how would you begin to institute this, and a lot of it has to do with leadership. I mean, I just have to say, like, without Christine, we wouldn't have City of Joy. So there's got to be leadership, somebody who is there, committed, or a leadership team that is able to bring this forward,
And so for people who want to learn more, who want to get involved, who want to support, where can they find more information?
cityofjoy.org, or go to the V-Day website, and people always say, how can we be involved? Well, you can be involved by, obviously, money is a wonderful way to be involved, but I think also, like, there are so many things that happen at City of Joy. For example, every year we graduate 180 people over the year, and all of those girls go back to their community. It's not expensive to go to school in the Congo. What is it? How much is it a year to go to school in the Congo?
It depends.
But it's relatively like $100 a year.
For secondary.
Yeah.
Primary.
For primary school, it's $100 a year. There are ways, when women graduate, we've been trying to raise money so we can buy women land. So when they go back to their communities, let's say you come from Limera, and everybody who's graduated goes back to that community over time. One woman buys land so that every graduate then comes and they're part of that collective, and they start to, harvest that land, and so they start to get powerful in the community because they have land. Land isn't that expensive. People could help buy land for people to build the next stages, and then that land is theirs, and they're on their way. It's an empowerment act. So there are plenty of things people can do to be involved. And I think the other thing people can do is to wake up to what's going on in the Congo and see our connection through the use of our cell phones, through the use of electric cars, and like how where's that money going? What corporations are you supporting? You asked the question of what corporations can do. Well, I think the question is, I'm leaning towards this new idea that I haven't even told you about yet of like a tax on corporations that goes back for reparations. Like, I think anybody who's in the Congo who's making money off resources should have reparation tax that goes to women so they can rebuild their careers and rebuild their lives.
And their bodies.
And their bodies. A certain percentage of everything you make is just a reparation tax. You give it back for what's happened in that country. But you can push to make things like, or push to make sure the Dodd-Frank Act is enforced. Under this administration, it's completely lax.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a rich conversation. Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for
Thank
being
all
with
of you
us.
for coming out. And thank
you
you,
once
Kim,
again.
for amazing conversation, really.
Thank you all. Good night.